صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب، والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, we ask Allah to send His greatest peace and blessings upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We praise Allah for all the blessings He has given us, and the greatest blessing being that He allowed us to be of the ones who remain steadfast, dedicated, and loyal on the path of our master after the Prophet, the commander of the faithful, the prince of the believers, the protector of the Prophet and his message, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. We praise Allah for this blessing and every blessing, for without Allah we would have nothing. Assalamu alaikum, my dear respected brothers, my dear respected sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. History is truly a peculiar thing, because the deeper that you dig into it, the more you find out not just the things that happened and how they happened, but why they happened. When you go to the year 656 AD, this at this point has been about 2.5 decades after the death of the Holy Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And at this point in time, there's been 3 administrations that have come to rule this growing Muslim empire. The first, the second, the third, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman. When Uthman and his rule is ended, and literally Uthman being ended as in he was killed, executed by the people that he came to rule, a people that had basically had enough of the nepotism, enough of the corruption, enough of everything that Uthman and Banu Umayyah were doing. They had enough. So the people attacked the home of Uthman. They found him at home with his wife and killed them. There was only so much that Imam Ali alayhi salam could do. Even though Imam Ali alayhi salam was no friend to Uthman, he was a friend of peace. He was a friend of equity. He was a friend of justice. He was a friend of Islam, the defender and guardian of that faith. And those people that came to seek vengeance against Uthman were not individuals that were seeking justice. They were just seeking that ambition of their own hearts and their own desires. But Uthman would be killed. And the people would then turn to Imam Ali alayhi salam in this year in 656 AD to rule and be their leader. How does Imam Ali alayhi salam respond to the people that have come to him? Because when all of this took place, the people of the Muslim empire, they turned to Medina. And they said, let it be decided in Medina, and we will follow whatever the people of Medina say. Ammar ibn Yasir, one of the close companions of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and one of the companions of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ascends the pulpit as all of the people are gathered, and he begins speaking to the people and saying, you all know who should lead you and who should have led you. You all know the opportunity that you missed. Do not let the opportunity pass you up again. You all know there is no one more deserving than Ali ibn Abi Talib for this position, and no one that could lead you into the light after the darkness that you have just witnessed other than him. So who will you choose? So all the people began chanting, we want Ali, we want Ali, we want Ali. Can you imagine the scene? So as Imam Ali alayhi salam is being called on by the people, he refuses them. He said, I am better for you as counsel than I am as chief. Go and seek someone else. I do not desire this position. I don't want it. Choose someone else and I will follow him with you. Now some people find this to be a peculiar thing. If Imam Ali alayhi salam was the rightful successor of Rasulullah, and now the people have essentially come to their senses, why wouldn't Imam Ali alayhi salam right away say, yes, my time has come, the people have come to their senses, I will lead. Finally, you guys wisened up. In Imam Ali alayhi salam, in his speech in response to the people of Medina, he explains to them how they have chosen a certain path, and he, for the sake of Islam, went with that path. Mind you, in the first caliphate, and the second caliphate, and the third caliphate, Imam Ali alayhi salam wasn't silent to the injustices and the corruption that had taken place. He made his voice heard. However, he didn't isolate himself. He didn't cause a ruckus. He didn't essentially initiate a rebellion against the power. But what he did was he stayed in order to protect the body of Islam and protect the believers. If any of you is looking to gain a deeper understanding of this history, I'm going to recommend a couple books. There's one particular book that if you're looking at the history of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, if you notice in each one of these nights, I continue to allude to Muharram, to Ashura, to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and the day of Ashura. There's an essential book that I encourage you all to read, which is, originally was in Arabic called Faji'atul Taf by the late Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Sa'id al-Hakim. It's translated in English by the Mainstay Foundation. It's called Understanding Karbala. If you read this book, you will begin to start tying in these pieces of history together to see why do Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam do what they do. You'll find, and I'm going to give you this as a tidbit so that even if you don't read the book, take this away with you. There's a foundational motive, a purpose that Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam have in all of their work that you see commonly amongst the Imams. And that's always to protect the religion and the believers. Ad-Din wa Dima. Literally by Dima meaning the life of people. People's lives. So you'll find at any instance in some of the battles that we're going to cover briefly tonight, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he eventually would come to rule, and I'll explain a little bit more of how he ended up telling the people how he will come to rule. In the battles that he faced, in every single battle, Imam Ali alayhi salam would challenge the leader on the other side of the battlefield and say, let no one die on this day. Whoever wishes the dominion, whoever wishes for rule, whoever wishes to come and take this khilafah, come and take it from me. Kill me and we'll be done. No one will die. It wasn't Imam Ali alayhi salam being a hero, being a champion. It was Imam Ali alayhi salam wanting to save blood, wanting to save human life. He didn't want bloodshed. So Imam Ali alayhi salam, in this year, they continue to emphasize in Medina, no Ali, we want you to lead. We want you to lead. We won't miss this opportunity again. We've been in darkness, we want the light. So Imam Ali alayhi salam explains. He said, I only know one way to lead, and you won't like it. So I am telling you, if this is your choice, then let it be your choice. Remember what I said the other night. Imam Ali alayhi salam was arguably the first publicly elected leader, not just within Islam, but in Arab history. The overwhelming support that came from the majority of the empire for Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was not seen before. So Imam Ali alayhi salam said, if you are choosing me to lead, know that I only know how to lead in one way. And that is from your choice. So imagine this. Imam Ali alayhi salam is coming to power, telling them, I'm going to lead just like the Prophet led. But it's your choice, you're choosing me. Something to keep in mind here, for those who are really paying attention to not just the history and the politics, but the theology itself, the creed itself. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib was not ruling over them as the Imam. He was always the Imam. It didn't become now Imam Ali alayhi salam, his full position of the Imama was manifested in 656 AD, and for 25 years the Imam was incomplete. No. The Imam was in this situation, now the statesman over a people that elected him. This is something really important to realize. Why? Every Imam, from Imam Ali alayhi salam throughout his life, to Imam al-Hasan, who would strike a peace accord with Muawiyah in 680, or excuse me, in 661 AD. That would last until 680, when Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam would become the Imam, the active Imam. And when we say, by the way, active Imam, that means that this is the Imam now that is leading the Ummah as the divine representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Imam al-Hasan was alive, he was the active Imam. When he was martyred and killed, poisoned and killed, Imam Hussein became the active Imam. In each one of these situations, the full authority and the full role and the full completeness, the manifestation of what God has wanted for the Imam in leading the people, given all of the circumstances, the Imam is not in shortage of his duty. What does that mean? That regardless of governance or not, the Imam is manifesting his role on earth. The governance that Imam Ali alayhi salam had for that 4 years and 10 months, less than 5 years, was not when the Imamah was complete. I want you guys to really pay attention to this. Why? Even today, who is our Imam today? Who? Who's our Imam today? Who's our Imam today? Imam Ali is our Imam forever. But who is our living active Imam today? Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. I want you to pay attention to this. And I'm emphasizing this why. If you're looking at these nights of destiny, if you're looking at Layal al-Qadr, whom by the way, sometimes it's translated as the nights of power or the nights of significance. Probably the better translation is the nights of destiny. Because in these nights, you're laying out your destiny for the next year to come. When you're looking at these nights of destiny, realize how closely connected the Imam of our time, who through him, all of our blessings come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Through the Imam of our time. So when you're looking at the Imam of our time, is he manifesting his role as the Imam even in his occultation? Yes. But we don't see him. But he's not here. Yes, he is here. The next time you say the Imam is absent, take a step back, remind yourself, just because you don't see him doesn't mean he's absent. The Imam is not absent. The Imam is in your life. The Imam is there for you. The Imam sees you. The Imam feels you. The Imam hears you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the sun behind the clouds. It's getting a little bit sunnier, isn't it? We're feeling a little bit the warmth of the sun, right? Today and yesterday, went outside, just like felt the warmth. It was beautiful, wasn't it? Wasn't it? Didn't it feel a little bit different? Guess what? You still had the sun those days before, even though it was so cloudy. Because if the sun wasn't there, if it didn't exist, if the sun was absent, then we would cease to exist. This earth would be no more. And that is the likeness of the Imam. Now connect this back to Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam with the people. He was always the Imam, always that blazing sun, that radiant sun for the people. But people put up the clouds. People put up the blockade. People put up the barriers. He said, I'm here. Ask me before you lose me. Ana al-Quran al-Natiq. I am the speaking, breathing, walking, living Quran. So Imam Ali alayhi salam, by the election of the people, would come to rule. What did Imam Ali alayhi salam do when he was the ruler of this Muslim empire? Economic reform, political reform, social reform. Change was coming. And a lot of people like the idea of change until it begins to hurt their pockets. Let me give you an example. Imam Ali alayhi salam, one of the things that he did when it came to the economic, financial reform of the empire, mind you, the 12 years before with Uthman, there was a lot of nepotism. There was a lot of favoritism. There was, hey, anybody that's my cousin, my relative, they got hooked up on the side. Oh, how much do you want from the treasury? You need 100,000 dinar? You got it. Oh, you want to purchase that land over there? You got it. You want 100 cattle? You want 100 horses? You got it. Imam Ali alayhi salam makes it clear. He tells his assistant in the treasury, he says, gather the people, have the muhajirun come, have the ansar come, have everyone else come, Arab and non-Arab, black and white. You give each of them 3 dinar. One notable aristocrat, his name was Sahl. He comes forward, he begins shouting in the courtroom. In the courtyard of the treasury, he begins shouting. He's like, what is this? What justice is this? What reform is Ali ibn Abi Talib bringing forward? He looked to his left and he saw literally a man who used to be his slave, his servant. And he says, this man was my servant yesterday. Today I freed him. And he receives the same that I receive. Imam Ali alayhi salam comes forward and he says, if you have a problem with this, you have a problem with justice. Yes, you all will receive the same. Noble and bondage alike, whether you're of nobility or you were born in bondage, whether you're a slave or you're a free man, all are treated the same under the justice of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Black, white, yellow, red, it didn't matter the color of your skin. You were a human being. That's it. Some of them came forward and they said, but we are companions of Rasulullah. But we are companions. We deserve to be treated differently. We need to be taken care of. We were there with the Prophet. You know, Imam Ali alayhi salam said, your reward is with Rasulullah in Jannah. Your reward is with the Prophet. If that was what you were seeking, to be a companion of the Prophet. They didn't like it. They didn't like it. Literally within months, some of the most notable companions that have given bay'ah to Imam Ali alayhi salam, the likes of Talha and Zubair, removed their bay'ah. They took it back. How did they proceed? They go and they visit Imam Ali alayhi salam one night. And they find that Imam Ali alayhi salam is in his study. As soon as he sees them approaching, Imam Ali alayhi salam had one candle lit. And he had another candle next to it that wasn't lit. As soon as he sees them approaching, he turns on the second candle and turns off the first candle. Talha comes forward, Zubayr is next to him. Talha says, Ya Ali, what's going on? We thought this would be different. He's like, what do you mean? He said, we have come and given you allegiance on the premise that we would be your partners in governance. They were particularly angry. Why? Because Imam Ali alayhi salam at this point was now giving the posts. Who would be the governor of Basra? Who would be the governor of Kufa? Who would be the governor of the new province of Egypt? Who would be the governor of Medina, etc., right? So now these are the posts. Who's going to lead? Because whoever leads has access to resources, has access to people, has access to authority. Is the authority themselves. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, partners in governance. No. You gave allegiance on the premise that you would be partners in establishing justice and fighting for truth. That is what you would give allegiance on the basis of. So Talha continued to exchange some words with Imam Ali alayhi salam, was obviously frustrated. Before they left, Zubayr was quiet this time. Before they left, Zubayr looked at Imam Ali alayhi salam and he asked him, Ya Ali, why did you turn off that candle and then turn on the next? Why did you turn off the candle? Everyone stay with me. Why did you turn off that candle and turn on the next? Imam Ali alayhi salam said, you came forward and I anticipated that you came with a private matter. I was working on matters of the state using this candle which was funded by the treasury of the state. When you came forward with your matter, I turned it off and I turned on my personal candle that I purchased with my personal funds. Talha and Zubayr looked at each other blankly. This man would not even burn the wick of a candle. Look at your Imam. Even if you do not follow the same principle as Imam Ali alayhi salam, I being the first one, that I'm not following Imam Ali alayhi salam the way I should. I'm not as principled as I should. I let some things slide at times. My moral compass is not completely aligned with Ali ibn Abi Talib, but I can't help but fall in love with this man in his dedication to justice, in his dedication to truth. He would not even let the wick of a candle burn without its rightful purpose. They looked at each other and they walked away. They knew they weren't getting nothing from Imam Ali alayhi salam that wasn't duly to them. So what did they do? They fought him. Oof. They fought him? Yes. Talha, Zubayr, and Aisha, one of the widows of the Prophet, come forward and take a campaign onto Basra. I want you to see this in full context. Aisha, Talha, and Zubayr, and more so Aisha and Talha, when Uthman was killed, they were some of the proponents rallying the rebels against Uthman. There's a notable statement by Aisha telling the people of Medina, kill Na'thal, for he has disbelieved. Na'thal? What's Na'thal? In Arabic, it's two meanings. The first one was literally one of the words for hyena. And the second was the name of a Jewish man who had hostility towards the Prophet and Islam. And Aisha made it very clear. She gave a fatwa. She gave a decree. Some people looked at Aisha and saw her in that notable respect and said, this is the widow of the Prophet. She's giving a fatwa, a decree. She said, اقتلوه فإنه كفر. Kill Na'thal. Kill one of the two meanings or both of them. Kill the hyena, he has disbelieved, or kill the man who basically I'm making him the equivalent of a Jewish man who had hostility towards Islam. That was the principled stance, quote unquote, of Aisha. Talha was one of the individuals who on the ground was rallying the rebels against Uthman. Now they came and they realized Imam Ali comes to power. They didn't have a share in that power anymore. Aisha began mobilizing people against Imam Ali alayhi salam. And Talha and Zubair joined in that campaign in which they went to Basra. They sacked Basra, killing numbers of innocent people, then rallied troops to fight Imam Ali alayhi salam. Now, we don't have that much time. Inshallah, I'll go into some more detail tomorrow. But from Basra, in what became known as Ma'arakat al-Jamal, the battle of the camel being the camel that Aisha rode into battle on against Imam Ali alayhi salam, in which thousands of Muslims were killed. Thousands. Why? Supposedly to take vengeance for the blood of Uthman, whom she had given a fatwa saying, kill the man. Someone called Aisha out on that before her campaign onto Basra. And the way she defended herself was basically, I said something, the people have said something, let the last thing that I say be the best of what I say. When you look deep into history, you see the context. You see the different motivations at hand. You see how people were moving. And you see the consistency, the constancy of one man, one family, one group. Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and the Shia of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. From the battle of the Jamal to the battle of Siffin, because Muawiyah couldn't sit idly by, so he waged his own campaign against Imam Ali alayhi salam. To the battle of Nahrawan, because there was a group of people that defected from the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam in the battle of Siffin, and they launched their own battle against Imam Ali alayhi salam. For 4 years, Imam Ali alayhi salam fought, but he did something in all of these battles. He established a standard of just governance. He clarified the rules of engagement. And Imam Ali alayhi salam did something that his predecessors, the first, the second, the third caliphs, again, in his role as a khalifa, not as the imam. He was always the imam. But even as the khalifa, he established something that none of his predecessors could do, which was, how do you deal with conflict between Muslims without making the other Muslim a kafir, a disbeliever, ousting them from Islam? Imam Ali alayhi salam took on the challenge. He didn't make the other people disbelievers just because they fought him. Take note of this. Understand it in our communities and our societies across the world, whether we are from different schools of thought. If you say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, you are my brother, my sister in faith, and you may come and have conflict, but there's a way to deal with it. Ali ibn Abi Talib never, just because someone stood against him, said, you are no longer from the faith. You are no longer from Islam. You are no longer someone who says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Even someone like Abu Sufyan, who was the arch enemy of Rasulullah, Imam Ali alayhi salam still dealt with him. Muawiyah, he still dealt with him. Under Islam. That's leadership. When we speak of unity, when we speak of community, when we speak of Islam, that is Islam, nothing else. Nothing else. So my dear brothers and sisters, we end with that thought, with that reflection. Bringing it together in this understanding of whether it be in your personal development, in your spirituality and connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to become the center of your life, or you're looking at your community, your society, and how to look at other people. Look at Ali ibn Abi Talib. Look at Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, and you'll find your compass, you'll find the guidance that you need. هذا والحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة والتسليم على نبينا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على وقت